Hello again. I recently put a little video on YouTube with regard to setting up a bench grinder, and at the time I said I'd probably make another one or another two with a bit of luck that to do with. First one is grinding flat faces on metal so that you haven't got multi-facets like this one has. You see that face there, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 faces, and we want to convert that to one face so that it'll perform its function rather than sort of just been taken off like that. On this other side I've hollow ground this, and this is quite flat but it's hollow ground. Hollow ground is grinding is when you use the periphery of the wheel and you grind one facet, but it's hollow because it doesn't grind. Now, and a lot of people say you shouldn't use the side of the wheel, but if you use it responsibly, then you can do so. I mean, you mustn't put a lot of strain on that wheel, so therefore you just put sufficient to do the job, and you should be all right. I don't accept any liability for that. If you misuse it and it comes to grief, that's up to you. So now then, with regard to flat face, a little bit of an art in it. A lot of people, they can't repeat getting a flat face on something. Now this is the part of a bit from a power drill or power tool, and so we'll grind flat face on there and a flat face on there. That's multifaceted, and that is just hollow ground, and we take it from there. Okay. Now then, that was ground on there like that, and if you put it up there like there, it's on there, then you will get a flat face on there. It's very difficult to get a flat face on there because you can't see what's happening on a hollow ground thing, whereas if you use the side of the wheel, then you can see what's happening. And so we'll grind this hollow ground one into a flat face now and see how we get on. Now then, what I do is that when you put it on the side of the wheel like that, as soon as you do, start moving it around the wheel. Because you want to keep the flat wheel flat, whereas you don't want to put wear a hollow in it, and therefore it won't achieve what you want to do. So you can see with that now that there's the piece of the hollow ground. I hope you can see that, and there's the flat face that is developing. Now it's developing on the bottom side. You see that? It's more along the bottom of the tool there, and that's quite common because if you just press, it tends to take more off the bottom side of what you're grinding than off the top, and that's quite common. So what I find you've got to do, in order to get what you want, you've got to introduce what I call bias, but we'll deal with this first. Now, we'll deal with bias a bit later on. But how do you get a flat face? And the way you want to get a flat face consistently, you can see I hope you can. You can see I've got a flat face there, and you've got a little bit of the hollow ground still there. So we want to get rid of that, and we want to get it off the top side. So the way I do it is, this is a tool rest. I hardly ever use that as a tool rest. I don't do that, never, haven't done it, never, and never will, I don't suppose. I use the tool rest as a hand rest, and what I do, I put a finger there or wherever is convenient, and I use my forefinger and my thumb to control the work. Now then, you control that work in a number of ways. You can do it that way, that way, that way, and that way. So you've got 4 ways you want to control that work. So how do you present it to the job so that it starts off right? Now what I do is bring the bottom of the tool, or bring the bottom of the work a little bit, just bias the bottom of the tool a bit forward towards the side, the face of the grinding wheel, and then look down where it is, and sort of look at the shadow and try and get that shadow parallel. And get everything ready like that, and then just bring it a little bit further forward. You'll feel that the bottom of the workpiece hit first. You see it there? Hit first. And then you rotate it, because it's parallel, you rotate it into the machine, and then you can grind away. And that is the way you should do it. You can grind away. You've only got a certain amount of time because that work is getting hot. So that's why you want that water supply there, quite handy. You can dip it in and then you come back up. You put the bottom of the tool slightly forward, see it just touching, and then you rotate it into it. Now then, although I'm moving that about on the side of the wheel, I don't approach the corner of the wheel because I want to keep that corner sharp. So you just, and what you're doing, because you're moving it about, you're keeping the stone in good condition. So when you want to grind something very flat, it's already flat. Whereas if you kept it in one place like that, you would end up with a hollow in the stone. Now it's almost getting to a flat face now. There's a little bit wanted there. I hope you can see it. And there's a little bit on the top there, but that's easy to deal with. So now then, as I said to you, now that's a flat face now. Just a very slight touch there, but that is now a flat face. Now then, what you want to be aware of, and I did mention it to you, is that if you put it on the wheel and just hold it flat, what tends to happen, it seems to be one of those things, that it grinds more off the bottom than off the top. So the flat face, if you like, rotates around, and therefore it can happen that, and you can influence that by putting on a bias, what's called a bias. A bias is when you rotate the tool with your thumb and forefinger by rotating it to squeeze that up to the grinder and keeping it flat but rotating it, and also using your hand to do that. See, use both like that, you see, and then so therefore you've got that face, that face, that face, and that face, and this one has got what I call a bias. And what I'm doing when I got it flat like that, if I want to make it take a bit off the top and not off the bottom, to keep that parallel, then I introduce the bias. And so what you do is you come in at the bottom, see, you can just see it's just touching at the bottom, that's parallel. You can see by the shadow between the wheel and the tool that it's parallel. It's not like that and it's not like that. And then then it's just touching the bottom, then you rotate it in. Now you press. You don't want a lot of pressure. You don't want a lot of pressure, just press. Now I'm going to introduce bias, and what I'm doing is while it's flat, I'm easing it like that. But the main thing to do is this. The pressure against the stone is always greater than the pressure of the bias. Now then, what I mean is that you've got a certain amount of pressure there when you're on the stone. I'm pushing that against the stone, not a lot. And then I'm going to introduce the bias, which is the turning pressure. Now the pressure against the stone is always greater than the pressure of the bias, because if it wasn't, I'll show you what happens. It's like that, turn it in. Now that I'm going to turn now, and I turn too much. I put more turning pressure on than I did have pressure against the stone. And what happened is I got two facets now. I mean, you might just be able to see that. I'll do that a little bit stronger. But if you see now, I don't know whether you can see it, but I've got two facets now. I got one there, and I got one there, and I got a slight one down here. So I got three facets on there now. And what I want is one. So what you must be aware of is that when you're grinding, You go again, you keep the reason you keep the bottom touch first is that you can see the shadow, because now it's touching, and then you keep that touching and you rotate the work in until you can feel the stone. And that's a very good way of describing it. A very good way of describing it is you can feel the wheel. That's what they mean, feel the wheel. You've got it there, you can just see it touching, you rotate it in until you feel the wheel, and then don't panic, you just carry on. And just carry on like that, keep it going, keep it going. Now you come to a point where that's going to overheat and it's going to go blue if you're not careful. So you take it off, dip it, and then get rid of that heat. Now then, I just got a little bit there. It's almost flat. It's a little bit. So what I'm going to do is introduce a little bit of bias now, and I generally use a little bit of top bias, which means that I'm trying to bring the top forward because it's natural for the stone to try and grind the bottom away. So if we come to there, we go like that, we turn it. Now I've introduced some top bias. I've got some twist on it. When you are quite happy, leave it. Don't take it off too soon, because otherwise it doesn't have a chance to get a flat face before you take it off. So when it's grinding, you want to keep it on as long as you can without gluing the metal. This is getting very thin here now, and if I were to leave it in too long, that would burn. So what I'm going to do now, just to take that away, I'm going to put it on here. I'm not going to go close to there because I want to keep that edge. I want to keep that flat. So you do exactly the same thing here. You just move it across the wheel all the time, just to the edge. And now we've introduced a flat on the. Now then, that's on that face. So we're doing it now with a completely different face. Now this is multifaceted. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's looking a bit of a mess. So what you do is you do exactly the same. You look at the angle at the shadow, make sure it's parallel. You put the bottom to the wheel first. Make sure it's parallel. Bring it to the wheel. It's just touching. Leave it touch the wheel like that, and then rotate that in. Till it's at the angle you want, and then you keep it like that. Put a bit more pressure on. Put a little bit of top bias on. Always make sure that the pressure against the wheel is greater than the pressure of the bias. And that way you get a flat face. I hope you understand that. I mean, if your bias is more than the pressure, it lifts the bottom off, and then you get two faces. Whereas if you just be aware of that, so that sort of pressure that you're doing with your hands, like that, is introducing bias, and in that way you can control the wedge shape of what's on the tool there, whether it's thinner this end or that end, by making use of the bias. It's quite important. Now then, you can grind away now. I got to be aware of now that that face on the front of there is quite thin. So therefore, I got to be aware now that could burn easily, and therefore I don't leave it on too long, because I don't want to burn the metal. If you burn the metal, you ruin the tool. So you bring it on, you put the bias on. I'm going to carry on as long as I dare. I may overdo it. And that's it. See, you've got a nice flat face. So if I recap on that, if you want a flat face, you put your hand on there. You don't put it on there. It's too coarse. You put it on your forefinger. You rotate it like that. You introduce bias, which is a tendency to twist it like that. Or even if you want to go wedge it, you can twist it like that. But the first thing you do is get the bottom to the wheel. See it. Press in and rotate till you can feel the wheel. Once you feel the wheel, then you're away, and you move it around on the stone like that. Keep it on for as long as you can, and when you think there's danger of burning, you take it off. Now then, that's a flat face. You see? Now then, what I'll do, I'll deliberately burn it, to show you what I mean. This is now getting very thin. It's about, well, less than half a mil of thickness in the metal at the end there. It's coming to a point. So let's deliberately burn it. So what I do is like that, away we go. Right, so move it around to protect the stone. Feel the wheel, you can feel the wheel. Look how it's starting to burn, see? Just starting to burn there. Burned at the other side. Now that is a surface burn. If it was really bad, it would be right through the metal, and therefore you would have to grind that away because the metal has been damaged. So let's have a look. We go to that side and see there. Now you can see I've only just put that on and it's taken it away, so it was a surface burn. But we do a bigger burn than that. Now then, as I say, if you come up like that, on there, turn it, away you go. Put on bias if you want. You know what I mean by bias? The pressure of the bias is always less than the pressure of the tool against the wheel. There's so much pressure pushing against the wheel, and there's so much pressure turning that. But you don't want to lift it off, because if you lift it off, it's like this. That's lifted off now. I got too much bias on. So let's see what's happening. And what's happened is we got two facets, because I'd rotated it off the wheel. Now then, I got to get rid of that now. You got a facet there and a facet there. You only want one face, or one facet if you like. So let's do that. Let's try and get rid of them two facets now. So what I'll do is introduce, and it's also burning because it's very thin. I'll leave that. I know, well, I could do it. No, but what I'll do, I'll get rid of that first by doing this. Note that I don't go beyond the stone. I don't want to. Now then, we got quite a nice thick there of about 2 to 3 mil, so that shouldn't burn very easily. So right now, so we got one flat face on there, a little bit, and then we want to grind this off. So what I'll do on there, I just there on there, that on there, that on there, that on there. Put it face forward at the bottom. See it touch. Keep it on there. Rotate. I can feel the wheel. It's nice and flat, so I'll grind away. Now then, when you're doing it for the first time to see what you're doing, you don't leave it too long. Now then, that's almost a flat face already. That's parallel, so we're quite happy there. We want to introduce a little bit more top bias. When I say top bias, push the top in, because that's a little bit wedged, a little bit wider at the top than the bottom. So when we go back on, now then, I was showing you how to do it. You can feel the wheel, I can feel the wheel, and it's a nice feeling because I know that that place is going to be a flat face when it comes off, because I can feel the wheel. You can feel when it's on the flat, and therefore that's quite a nice face, you see. Now then, this one is a little bit different angle, comes down further than it comes down to here. So we try and bring this a little bit of a more angle on it. So when I put it on now, I put it on, and now then that's parallel. So I'm going to take the tool a little bit that way to try and make it come further down the cut. So righto. So there we are, on, rotate, and now I brought it out a little bit. So I know now that when I take that off, there's going to be two facets, and there they are. There's a facet up here, and there's one down there. You might not be able to see that, but there's two faces on there now. But I brought that lower down, so it's approaching the same height as that. So now then I can put that back on. I know that that's a good one, so I can go like that. There you are, you've got a flat face. So that's it. So you've got a nice flat face. Now then, if you're doing that, I showed you how to do it by going forward first and then holding it to it and then rotating it, and then you're on it, and make sure that the shadow is parallel, and then you'll have a flat face. But if you're working in practice and you do this and you got quite used to it, you virtually feel the wheel straight away. Instead of just doing that and doing that and doing that, you just go straight onto it like that. So if you're working in an industry where you're up against the time limit, then you wouldn't bother with just trying to find it level and parallel. You just go for the flat face like that. And then you just go like that, have a look at it, back on. Have a look at it, that's flat, and it's quite nice. That wants to be a little bit down to it. And that's the sort of speed you'd be working at, because you might be working up a time limit. You want the tool, and you take it out of the tool, and you want to grind it, get it back in the machine quickly. And so therefore now that's a nice flat face, that's a nice flat face. We burned it. So we can get rid of that burn now, because I know that it's a surface burn. If it fits right through the metal. See? Gone. That's a flat face, that's a flat face, it's gone. It's a little bit not at 90 degrees, so we can go on there. And that's how you grind flat faces. You can see, I don't know, can you see that? But it might lint in this. But that's parallel, it's the size I want, and that's flat, and that's flat. The angles are the same, Same length down there as down there, well, almost the same. And that's a flat face, that's a flat face. And that's something that you can learn. And a lot of people, they perhaps never try to work it out, or they haven't been told, and they have trouble with that. But that's the way it is. So we just take that back now, before I finish on that. And that's made that a lot bigger now. So let's reduce that back to a wedge shape with about 1 mil on it. At the moment it's about 2-3 mil. So we go on there. You want to keep them the same length. Put that in there. That's a flat face. Turn to this one. You can go straight on. Once you get used to it, you can go straight on the wheel because you're feeling the wheel. That little phrase is very apt. You feel the wheel. And you just go straight on. But while you're learning, or just while you're getting used to the little idiosyncrasy of it all, then you just go to the bottom, you rotate. And then if you're this is parallel now because I'm keeping it parallel, but if that gets wedge shaped, then you've got to introduce bias. And generally speaking, I know from experience that if you go flat on there, it tends to grind it more off the bottom than off the top. So therefore, I automatically, when I go onto something like this, I don't look at it, I go there, and then I introduce bias straight away. I introduce a little bit of bias because I know it'll end up parallel. And I'm introducing bias, now automatically I can't help myself. And then, you see, I introduce enough bias to keep that parallel all the time. So that's it. There's a little bit of a of work on to doing on that face, but not much. And dip your tool, dip the job or the workpiece often into the thing. Don't let that heat build up because you've got water there, and you just do it automatically. If I was doing that automatically, this is what I would do. That's the sort of speed you'd work at. And then if you're working in a factory situation, or you want to get that work done and you want to get on with something else, or you're working on bonus, and so therefore you would automatically apply bias, and you would cool the work constantly. I mean, it's too late when it burns. Okay, I hope that's of some benefit to you. There we are. And that's it. Thank you. Next time we'll go on to grinding something like screwdrivers or wood chisels. That's what I'll do next.